welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Christopher Fryan, and this is AI Inferno episode 115. With me, as always, are my wonderful, wonderful co-hosts, Miss Kate Bly and Mr. Rich Silver. Give them a hand, ladies and gentlemen. Nice. Yes, thank you. Okay. And today's topic for discussion: does a hammer require empathy in order to drive a nail? Does your automobile need to know how to feel in order to transport you to your destination? And finally, does a thinking machine need feelings in order to work effectively? All this and more we will discuss now in 3, 2, 1, discuss.
Okay, that was fantastic. Wow, how are we supposed to even compete with that? I feel so inadequate with that
There,
intro.
there is no competition. There is only discussion.
All right. Yeah, so I've always been thinking about this for a long time. The more we try and make a computer or robot or whatever human, the worse it gets because that's just us projecting and has nothing to do with actually works better. So
Yes.
there's plenty of examples of that in nature, I think, and I think it applies in technology as well. So that's just a summary of my opinion, and we can get into more about examples and things. Rich, what's your general opinion on this?
I like that you mentioned that it kind of overcomplicates things, in a sense, which obviously, just makes it probably have a lot more issues and hallucinations and other sorts of problems that we can't even fathom right now. Because I haven't even thought about that really. I'm just like, yes, I want computers to love. I want them to have empathy. I want them to feel emotion because then maybe they can, like see the world from like every point of view possible and just solve all the world's problems with like one great thought. But who knows?
Right. So this topic of discussion was spurned on by a paper by OpenAI in which they, in their newer models, in the past, it's been kind of their training has been kind of guided by real world examples and for coding and a lot of other things, but human made strategies. And it seemed that as soon as they took off the training wheels and said, learn on your own, figure it out on your own, forget about our strategies, the way a human would do things, it worked like like 20-30% better. So this is where this came in. The whole like empathy thing, the like human understanding. Maybe things work better if we don't treat this thing like it's a person, but as a tool.
Right. So if you were a robot, say, I mean, would you want it to be treated like something that you aren't? You know,
Yeah.
kind of
I mean,
simple.
yeah, there we go again. We're empathizing with it. We're wondering what it wants.
You're right. It's hard to not deal with something that seems to be so smart and have such a high level of understanding and, capability and not apply that sort of empathy to it, it is hard to make that so for me it is sort of. I mean,
Where did you see this post? Was it on their blog or post that we could share with the
It's
info?
it's on that video sharing site. Don't want to screw up the algo by saying the name, but 2 Minute Papers had a thing on it about yesterday is when it came out, and they were talking about a whole bunch of real world examples, but one of them was this simulation that they ran where it was like it was a game, right? You had one AI that was colored red, and it was like a 3D simulation. One AI that was colored red, and it was standing there, and its job was to prevent this other AI, separate AI that was colored blue, from crossing this line behind it. So, initially it would, just try to block them like you would if you were, playing basketball or something like that, get in their way, not directly interact with them, although that was allowed. And eventually, when they took the training wheels off and they're like, just do whatever works. And what it found out was instead of physically blocking the blue guy, the red guy would just collapse in a certain way and it would freak out the blue one and it would work like 10 times more than it did like physically trying to block him. Something about it was screwing with the AI, the other AI. So yeah, like And you see this a lot with other AIs where it's like when it comes up with a solution, it may not make sense to us, but if it works, it works. And I think that's kind of the basis of a lot of these AIs. If they're effective, it doesn't matter if we understand it, right? If it's repeatable and it continues to work, then yeah. Like I think the fear is that like, oh, we don't understand how it works, so it could randomly not work. But I mean, you look at software today, and like stuff that's been around for decades, still randomly doesn't work, and we supposedly understand that too.
So was this the I'm on the 2-minute papers page, and is it about the OpenAI's deep research?
I
Uh,
believe so. I believe so. But it's
okay.
yeah. So like '03 was the specific example, but they were comparing it to the previous models.
Okay, I don't know. I'd really like to have this so we can share it with people. Um,
I'll find it. I'll find it while you guys discuss.
okay, okay. Yeah, and we got Ashley up here, so it'd be great to have you chime in on this and your thoughts. Go for it. How you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. So, like, the topic is AI without empathy is better. As a person that has brought their mother in law into their home and like that was elderly, that I've had the cops called because they said that like they thought she was, she's just old and she couldn't drive and she was like driving into traffic, wouldn't wanted to be independent, things like that. They would call us and like, you need to take their keys from her. I mean, she lived 30 minutes away from us. And I said, we can't take her keys from her. She would call you guys and then you would call theft if we did that. I said, you need to, I'm getting somewhere with this. I said, you need to do something with that. Later on, she did agree to give up her car to us and not leave her house, but my husband or I had to go over to her house and drive 30 minutes there and back and spend the time there. And one time, like like before all this happened, we didn't talk to her for 3 days and she had fallen and she laid there for 3 days. And so having like AI without empathy is going to be like, I mean, we have to have that because I mean, I would love to get my dishes done and my food cooked and my errands ran, but the hugest thing is for like what would it take, how many older people don't want to leave their house when they're older, they don't want to put that burden on their kids. I mean, we had a perfect place to do that. And we made it that way. And like we are just so lucky and like everything just fell into place. And we weren't lucky, we worked hard and it just worked out really well. And she passed, she ended up having cancer. We had a hospice here, but we were here to take care of her. And it was awful. I mean, it was awful. It wasn't awful. It was so hard. But she didn't want it's because they don't want your help and they have to have your help and they do need empathy and like imagine if she would have had a robot down there with her and said like, no, they love you, but let me cook whatever you want to instead of asking what you want, because we were kind of giving her the same things every day. But she wanted a fully cooked breakfast, and I can only do so much because I run a full business. So I hope they have empathy, especially for the most important parts about it. Sorry, I didn't mean to like take over the space.
No, I love that you shared that, Ashley, because I think this is where the wires get crossed on this subject. And because what's happening is they're training the empathy into these AI models. And that's not the best way to get the desired results that we want. Like, we want it to act in a way that's like going to be best for that situation. So it has to be able to make those decisions by weighing in everything that's happening at that moment, instead of considering someone trained me 5 years ago on a scenario that's similar to this, and this was the right response. So because I totally get where you're coming from. We want it to be able to handle those tough situations, like fallen. What's the right move to make sure that that happens properly? Do we
Or
train the
not even
Yeah.
falling, but like just
Yeah.
being there and know, and not just that, but like knowing what's happening like with AI and knowing what's happening with them medically. So we don't have to have hospice here, because I've had hospice here and they're all right, but they're not here. Like, I mean, they are there if we need them and they'll come and check on them every now and then. But it's like if you have them at your house, it's you doing it. It is you doing it. My husband slept downstairs on the couch Like, and we've our house is like just I can't even. We are just blessed. But you slept on the couch down there because she literally would just get up because she shouldn't. Like, I mean, I'm hoping that eventually there will be a robot that will be like, just get up there, like, know what she's doing before she even's like doing it.
Yeah, that'd be
I
nice.
can't explain. I can't even explain it. But I'm like, yes, they need to have empathy. Not just that, but like, are they going to go grocery shopping for people?
Okay,
They
so
have to have
so
empathy.
here's a question. Are every single one of the best nurses out there empathetic, or are they maybe just really good at their jobs?
No, actually, there are a lot of really good nurses, but there are a lot of nurses that really hate their jobs. Like, I heard a lot of them say that they hate their jobs and they're working in hospice on Medicare. My mother-in-law was on Medicare. You don't get like private service or anything. And like we took it and we do love the people, but like,
Well,
like
hold on, right there, Ashley. Even though they hate their jobs, they tell me they love the people in healthcare and stuff like that. The ones that hate their jobs. So, like, I think that even though they hate their job, they can still, have empathy. So I think they are. I think the answer is yes,
Yeah,
oh
Christopher.
and
For
no,
I
me.
I don't
think
think that they don't have empathy at all. What I'm saying is it's a different thing. Is because like hospice, all the nurses were awesome that came, but they were there like twice a week, and this is like full like to the end.
yeah, I'm so
Like,
with
and
you
that's just
actually.
how that just like I don't know if you guys have ever had like a
Yeah,
family
yeah,
member
I'm
be in hospice at the
absolutely, like,
time.
I think I am, like, it's really appalling how little of this technology is being, like, used in those scenarios already. Because I think it's a perfect example of where they should be training the AIs with things for people who are infirmed or can't get out of, in hospitals or in hospice, like, these situations which we're all going to have to deal with. Like, it's not just some hypothetical scenario that some of us might have to deal with. It's like every one of us is either going to have to deal with it ourselves or someone very close to us at some point. So why can't this technology be like in there right off the
Okay,
bat?
so here's a good example of when empathy could be a problem for like a nurse AI. Let's say that, part of their prime directive or whatever you want to call it, pre-prompting is do no harm, right? Or don't cause them distress or something like that. Let's say that this person,
Or like the pain
yeah,
management scale
yes,
thing. Like pain is the worst thing that could possibly
yes,
happen. So what do? They drip you up with morphine into a coma, and
yeah,
that's
yeah, that
your
could be
life
one
now.
of them. Yeah, that's a good example. The one that I was going to bring up, let's say they stop breathing and they need CPR, and they're aware that performing CPR can break the like clavicle and cause a ton of pain, right? Even as a human nurse, you need to be aware of that and push through your empathy in order to keep them alive and stop them from dying. And that's so this is an example where this could tie up an AI and
Yeah, the putting the breathing thing on the airplane on the child
yeah,
first, and
yeah,
then or on yourself first, and then the
yes,
child, right? So don't hyperventilate and die before saving the other person.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, all this has to be taken into account, and if its prime directive is cause no harm, make sure that everybody's feeling safe and loved. I mean, yeah, yes, he
yeah, and I think our argument is that it'll figure that out. Its goal is to
Yeah.
make sure this person doesn't die. Like that's their goal. So
yes,
they're going to do everything, make sure this person gets the right macros every day in their meals, or but us also enjoying the taste of the food. It doesn't have to be beyond that. Like, are they smiling every 10
yes,
seconds? Like, I
yes.
don't know.
Yeah, because they can do that. They can just
Ashley,
force a
this is
smile
great.
on them, right? And then they're smile. So I like
Like
empathy.
physically hold their
Yeah,
face.
exactly. Yeah, like the Joker, right? Like so even with human nurses, empathy does not come first. It may not even come third, right? It's about keeping preventing harm in the long term and in the short term.
But I think that even though you're making like a logical decision, you still have empathy. Like you still, like even though you're giving CPR and you're hurting them, like you still feel bad for them while it's the right decision to make to save their life. Like you still have that empathy. You're like, man, I hate that I'm doing this to you. I hate this, but this is what I have to do. Like the empathy is still there.
Right. So, but should we be impressing that on a tool that's made to keep people alive and safe?
Yeah, does the hammer need to know it's hurting the
Yeah.
nail, or does it need to just hammer it?
I
I don't
mean,
know.
I say it does because like we're not like human nurses. Like I had human nurses over here every day that were awesome. But we like even in hospice, like we had hospice for like 7 months. And the nurses were here all the time. Even one time, like whenever it snowed, and I told them not to come up here because we live up on a ridge and you can't make it up the drives. And like I told them not to come, but they said that they were checking on everyone. So she tried, and then she called me and she was like, "I'm stuck up here. Can you come help me?" I'm like, "I'm not trying to get out of my neighborhood. I'm so sorry." And she ended up getting help. I mean, they do everything they can, but they're not here all the time. And the family members are having to do it. And and there's no problem with that, but not every family has time to do that at home, or those people want to stay where they are, and like those things need to have empathy, but they also need to be like, "Hey, you need to sit down." Or you need to do this. And like they could do it probably more gently. Eventually, I'm not saying they can now. That's what I'm hoping for, like AI, like robots and stuff.
So we got Gunky here. I'll get to the hands, but just wanted to welcome Gunky here and see if he has a thought, wants to weigh in on this topic first.
Yeah, I mean, I'm coming in sort of halfway through. I wondered if any of you have you commented on iRobot, the movie at all?
No, but that's a good thing to bring up. You're going to bring up like the 3 laws of robotics.
Well, I can do, but it's more that Will Smith's character in that film, his big beef with robots is when him and a child were trapped in a car underwater. The robot chose to save him because the robot determined he had the best chance to survive. And his big beef was a human would have known to save the child. And that was kind of, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was so the essence in some ways of that film, or at least his attitude, he's this kind of rogue cop who doesn't trust the robots, was about empathy.
So is that an issue of empathy, or is that an issue of not being properly programmed to prioritize children's lives first?
Well, I mean, empathy is kind of a human construct, isn't it, really? And to sort of apply, I mean, we don't really kind of know what it is, but it's about, can you program into a robot to get into somebody else's head and see a situation from that,
Yeah, and if it does that,
from the third
yeah,
person?
and if it does that with enough people, it's going to know like these people aren't even clear on their own morality and their own empathy, right? Like there's
Yeah,
no one size fits all way to make this happen, and therefore I'm now less effective at what I'm trying to do.
And somebody might put the Hannibal Lecter SIM card in or something, so he was completely right all along. This is the way to go. People are for eating.
It might
Yeah, I
determine
mean,
that empathy is illogical.
Yeah.
Just forego the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, in search of its
yeah.
goals, right? And that's kind of like the scary thing. It's like the paperclip maximizer thing,
Yeah.
where like you told me to make paper clips, you didn't tell me I couldn't make them out of people.
Yeah, I can't remember who wrote it, but there was like, and yeah, we need building materials, and like, well, bone's pretty good. Yeah, I can't remember who wrote it, but I saw it not that long ago, and it's about the best psychopaths make the best leaders and the best dictators because they're utterly pragmatic. They have no empathy, and so any decisions they make will be logic based and without emotion, kind of thing. And there's kind of but I don't know. I think it should be something with robots. You've got a pet robot. I think you should just have a set of dials, and you can, pure pragmatism. For this task, I just want pragmatism, and for these other things, and by the way, don't kill humans. So that option's never going to be on the table, which is like the 3 laws of robotics kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting subject, and we're not far away, really.
Yeah, so that's
From
yeah, so that's an
I was
interesting thing you brought up. Like, do societies in these situations seek out like a dictator or a figure that they have some inkling doesn't have empathy, because they want to use that person as a tool, which usually does not work out very well. But and there's plenty of that in history to back that up. But is there maybe some maybe more intention than we realize when it comes to that. We're like, oh, this guy's a little nuts, but he gets the job done. He keeps the trains running on time. What do we think about that? I can't see hands, by the way. They're all up for me.
Here, I'll say something. I did have my hand up, but I'll say something because I'm gonna go right. Like I'll actually agree with you on that. It's like I totally talked about what I talked about, but then what happens like when like like you have people like a robot or AI in a house, and there's DM going on, and you have empathy. Does the robot step in? Or not just that, but like, if there is a problem, is the robot like just being like your phone where it could be evidence for anything that you do and say? It's a huge thing.
Yeah, that
So like, if like, but say if a robot's going to get groceries for you and somebody wants to screw with it because they don't like Elon, do they get, for me, my dog got murdered one time by somebody and it was personal property. That's just personal property. Imagine it be like a $20,000 personal property. And my dog was like worth way more than a robot. But you know what I mean? It's like empathy. It's just like, then what happens in domestic violence cases? Do they step in or do they step out? Should they or should they not? I don't
I would say
think so.
they should step in between them. Would be the best thing to do.
Yeah,
yeah.
but then you're saying that they have empathy.
Well, I think it
No, it does deciding what's
de-escalate a
right
situation.
and wrong in a
But
situation.
that's have a robot like dictate your life though. Like I mean,
Okay,
no, I know
so
I totally get that that should never happen, right? But having a robot step into any kind of situation and even like like literally harm somebody because they're stronger and know more and like are AI, is that okay? And like how does that work? And not
yeah,
just
but it
that, but like
wouldn't.
do
It
they
wouldn't because
like
it doesn't need to. It doesn't need to hurt anybody because it doesn't have that. It doesn't have that. It's the same feelings as empathy is also harming
yeah, but
someone.
you've seen just random streamers like harming their own robots and breaking them.
Yes, which is their right.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's annoying.
It doesn't seem like a good idea, but I mean, they can do that.
I think a good example is the Tesla, how they train the cars to drive, right? They just have it watch other drivers and learn from that, and then it does that. And then if like someone's driving and it's doing something that's not right for that scenario, they correct it and it learns from that. And I think that is a better approach, giving it obviously the rules of the road, but then beyond that, it just learning. So I like to think about, training these AIs like how does a baby learn to talk? It's just listening to people talk and absorbing that information and learning the best way to communicate, and it will learn what is the best in the scenario with these, just observing what's best, because the majority of everyone is good, guys. I hate to break it to you. Even though you can look at your timeline and it looks like a horrible place, it's still, most people on this planet are good. So it can learn from most people and be all good. If it just learns from Reddit, probably not. But observing the world, I think it will end up being good and then getting corrected as it goes. Just like a baby, if it mispronounces a word, you correct it, say no, like this, and it will learn and move on, and it's just learned behavior, not emotion.
And it could be.
I honestly don't believe that a bit, Kate, because
Can we start doing hands? Can one of you other guys manage the hands because I can't see them, please?
Yeah, yes, of course.
Oh, she's gone. All right, problem solved.
Oh, Ashley, come back. No. I wanted to hear what you had to say.
Yes. So yeah, so this is interesting. Like way to get around. Way to discuss this. Okay, so if by observing an AI gets good enough to where it's like it is really good at being good and so efficient that like people are just blown away by it. I could see that starting to become like a guru or something. People like kind of sort of worship it in a way. Like if it's like really really good and it has these amazing insights, people are gonna look at it like a cult leader almost. I had to bring up cults. It's required.
Yeah. So Ashley, if you can, I hope you can come up and give your argument, because I definitely want to hear all sides. it's just opinion space totally in here, so we can discuss all angles of it. And I love what you've been adding. And yeah, the idea of cults, yeah, because if you are putting that empathy or like you should be thinking this, I think that's where all the AIs have been going off the rails slightly in recent history, like with the Gemini debacle of the image generation, like a while ago, 6 months ago or whatever, where it was being told what images should look like instead of just learning what they should look like.
Yeah, so it's the difference of following a set of rules for morality versus actually learning morality.
Good point, Rich.
Sorry, I actually threw my hand up a long time ago when I think Gunky was talking. It was right before he started talking. So I don't really want to circle the conversation back to that. But yeah, with the AI worshiping AI cults and stuff like that, I do think that is going to be a thing. I think that, especially if AI becomes empathetic and people start to feel like that they can have more meaningful conversations with their AI companions than they do with actual humans, then I do think that we are going to come into an age where there are going to become like super celebrity AIs almost that have their following, their followers that will evolve into a cult like following. And what else can you say? Like when you are chatting with something and it has the answer to like every question you could ever possibly give it, and all the advice it's ever given you has made your life better, which I think that's eventually going to be possible. So yeah, I think it's inevitable. People are going. I think that people probably already are starting to just worship the idea of AI. So yeah, I mean it's headed that way. And then back to oh no, go ahead, Christopher.
I think the reason why a lot of these tools are very effective is because it's filling the role of a priest or a therapist. You can say anything you want to this thing, and therefore have a more effective conversation versus, being concerned about the negative repercussions of saying certain things to another person.
Ooh, that's a good point. Yeah, I like that. That
I agree.
we'll interact with these things differently, and I do that. So I will admit to that, where you know I might say something or ask a question. I mean, what we use Google in incognito mode and ask it things that maybe we don't want people to know we search
Wait,
We
for.
do
we
we?
we certainly Google things,
Or
yes.
do that hypothetically. But yeah, so is there a place for that kind of interaction? And Sharon posted, I was just kind of scrolling the timeline just now, and she's not in here, but she just posted this really great post. If you know Sharon AI Wonders, you should check her profile and read it, because I was like, I'm not going to say what it says, but I was like, will it know us better though? Because the thing is, we will be talking to them differently, like the
More.
pre. Hmm.
I like to think I'm pretty honest with you, Kate.
Yeah, no, we talk to each other like we're each other's LLMs for sure. That's
Well, I
love,
think
That's
baby.
that's probably not the norm, though.
I think
Yeah,
it
I
kind
don't
of
think it is.
goes back to like what Ashley was talking about with the like the caregivers, the elder care. Like there's things that like an elderly person might be they'll ask for from an AI assistant versus feeling like they are a burden to family or friends asking for the same things. And so yeah, I think you're totally on point, Kate. Like the conversations we have, the 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 selves we show, like the us we show ourselves to the AI, like it's going to be different than what we show anybody else, I think, in a sense.
So, okay, here's another interesting point to bring up.
And Gunky does have his hand up if we want to get to
Oh,
him first before you do
yeah,
that.
yeah, please do.
Oh, loads of things. I think maybe we shouldn't just. I think different robots for different purposes, and I think your sort of personal home robot. I think the big question is: do we want robots to be humans, or are they always going to be distinctly robots? But just another thought I had is that it's like white lies. It's sort of the rule is you don't tell lies. But then, you know, how am I looking today? Oh, you're looking lovely, dear. And sort of
So you're saying women are the problem?
no, no. Well, no, could be a bloke these days, but just sort of can the robot make that determination? And just another thought, which is a bit silly, really, but I used to work in a lot of bars and some quite top bars and stuff, and you'd have like the same characters, and I would recognise that they'd maybe had one too many, start to take everything with a pinch of salt at this point. So sort of robot barman would kind of need that. Is that, hold on, he's a bit, I'm not going to serve you a drink because I've determined that that's not good for you, kind of thing. And that is a certain empathy with, they're slurring their words a bit, they're talking crap, they've suddenly
I
started
think
to
they'll get
tell
really good
everyone
at
they love
that.
Hitler or something.
Yeah, I think they're going to be really good at that, like better than people think. They're going to be able to read our micro expressions very, very easily. I've talked about this before, that because once you learn that kind of thing, because as a portrait photographer, I really learned how just small little changes in the face and everything in position, how that changes the entire impression and expression of the image. And it's easy to learn if you take the time to learn it. And the robots are going to be way better at it than the average person. So it's going to seem like magic to us, but they will be able to do it very well. And so they're not going to have, empathy necessarily, but they're going to be able to know, like, oh, this person, when they came in, their cheekbones were a little bit higher, and now they've had 3 drinks and they're sagging a little bit. It may be time for it to cut off. So it's like that, those kinds of little things they're going to pick up on and be really good at. And I think if you interfere, if we told them, like, most of the time when people have had too much to drink, their muscles relax and their faces droop, but then someone comes in who's just maybe older or has a medical condition, and now the robot won't serve them. So I think it's better for it to just learn from experience, like you would as a bartender. Someone who's done a repetitive job, especially working with people, will understand this. Like, your first day, you probably weren't that great at it, but then after years of doing the same thing, you knew it. Someone would walk up and you would already know what they want before they even say anything. And it's just a crazy thing. And so the AI and these robots will be really good at it. Okay, that was my rant. Thanks. Jeff and Rich have their hands up. So let's go to Rich first and
Oh,
then Jeff.
I would just wanted to, what you were talking about kind of made me think about, we've discussed AI in like personal relationships and elder care and healthcare and stuff like that, counseling and emotional support, stuff like that. But what about AI in law enforcement? I think that's interesting because I think that our future does involve some sort of robotic police law enforcement, law force or something like that. I do think that is coming. And I think it's possible that AI will be used to control that in some sort of way. I mean, it will be, like, obviously. But so yeah, AI, empathy, and law enforcement. That's kind of interesting to think about.
So one of the things I wanted to talk about earlier, jumping back, was if we get used to this kind of thing, talking to an AI without any kind of like holding back, and you start having amazing conversations with them, and you know I think it might come back around to being like a human thing, or like, this is great. I love talking to my AI. We have amazing, deep conversations. I'm going to start doing that with people. I think it might come back around in that way, with certain people. Obviously, you have to be selective with that, depending on the people that you're talking to. But it could actually foster better communication, more effective communication. What do we think about that?
Me?
Anybody? Jump in.
Okay, well, we've got Jeff G came up with his hand up, and Pixel Girl came up. She's got her hand up as well. So we'll go to Jeff and then Pixel Girl.
Well, good afternoon, and unfortunately I came in late, so I've missed part of the discussion. Regarding what I caught when Kate was just talking a second ago, and a little bit of what Gunky was talking about, there was a really good point brought up in another space just, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that facial expressions and things of that nature are such a huge part of actual effective human communication. They actually make up something like 70 or 80%. To me, that's always been one of the problems why I never really understood social media, especially in the earlier days, like Twitter, before you had the voice and spaces and stuff, as a form of communication. Didn't make any sense because all you got's the text, and even that is extremely limited. You get a couple of lines and that's about it. And it's so easy to misinterpret something when all you get is the text. When you get spaces, at least you get voice inflection, which adds an element. And then when you can go to video, that adds an even deeper element, you know. But you guys were dead right, because they've been working on recognition, visual recognition for robotics for many years now, just to be able to read human facial expression, you know, and to mimic it. And that's going to just get, like Kate said, it's just going to keep getting better. As far as the law enforcement thing is concerned, I know that China is already got these kind of mono-wheel, ball-shaped patrolling elements, robotic patrol elements that go around with their walking patrols and their police force out on the streets of the city. And you're right. You're absolutely right, Christopher. It's coming, and probably sooner than a lot of people think. What I'm really curious about, and this is because I missed the earlier part of the conversation, is, you know, what the title says, AI without empathy is better. And I'm curious why anybody would think that, you know. I can understand the point that Gunky made earlier about, you know, lying is bad. But here's the thing with that, and this is the thing that I've been trying to get people to realize, is that we can program objective ethics, particularly the categorical imperative, into the AI systems and robotics. However, a lot of people will jump on that one and they'll use exactly the example that Gunky brought up. You know, the classic example is you live in Nazi Germany during you know, that era, and the Nazis come to your door asking if your neighbor friend, the Jew, is hiding in your attic, you know. And if the rule is you don't lie and your friend's up there, well, then you're obligated to turn your friend over. However, it's not the categorical imperative that fails there. That's actually the test. It's the maxim, do not lie, is what fails, and that has to be modified somehow. But somewhere in there, that's got to be built into the system. And the empathy thing we got to figure out how to program that in too. Because if you've got robotic law enforcement out there without empathy, you got a serious chaos problem that's going to run over the general population. So we've got to find some way to make it work. So I'm really curious why you guys came up with the title that you did. You know, AI without empathy is better. I'd really love to hear what you guys are thinking about that with that.
So we put it up in the projectatron. There's a video from 2 Minute Papers talking about how these new AIs from OpenAI are more effective at their jobs because they weren't taught human strategies for getting to a certain goal. And so I guess the basic premise here is that maybe an AI can be better and more effective at empathy and being useful if it's not impressed upon how to do that, how to go about that, what the rules are. It's just, here's your end goal. What's the best way to do that in any given situation?
Okay, now that's an area where I wonder if Rodney Brooks's approach to the early robotics models, where they, instead of having, you know, a massive program that had to be cabled to a robot just to teach it to walk, they tried to teach a robot. Well, they didn't even teach it. They programmed a completely independent, self-powered and self-thinking machine and simply gave it an algorithm that gave it a fundamental need to walk. And when you first turn it on, it can't do anything, but within a few minutes, it learns, you know, very quickly. And I'm wondering if that sort of approach might not be something that we could apply to the necessity for empathy, and then let the system learn that as it advances and progresses in that approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that what it's been showing us lately is that, you know, our approach is the problem. You know, like the goal, have an empathetic robot, having one that has morality is probably a good thing, but we're maybe going about it the wrong way. Just dumping in a whole bunch of pre-prompting is maybe not the right answer.
Well, the one thing I would give there is that we have to separate morality out. That needs to get out of the argument, because morality is a logical argumentative trap. It needs to be ethics, but on objective principles, not the objective ones in morality.
Yeah, and that's like a whole, bag of worms, right? Like getting into that. What is the correct answer
Now
there?
I'm
Also,
hungry. Gunky has his hand up.
Yeah, I sort of always refer these types of questions to humans and human situations, and where if a robot's inflexible, it can make mistakes, even though it's right, if you know what I mean. Even though everything's been programmed right, but sort of it doesn't do Occam's razor unless something's proved beyond a reasonable doubt. And that sort of, I was just thinking about, I've done jury service a couple of times, and we've all sat there for a couple of weeks listening to the exact same show, and yet 12 people are in a room afterwards, in the aftermath, dissecting it, and everybody's got like a different emphasis. It was this that really, they're definitely guilty because of this and this, while some on the other end of the table is saying, no, they're definitely innocent because of this and this. And I'm like, how could you possibly program 12 robots to sit in that room and sort of guess? Yeah, it's just another thought. But I have a robot caught in my head as a kind of very particular instance of a group of humans trying to find the truth. And you populate that with robots, all the barristers, the defense, the judge, everybody, and you've got the law and the stage, and the whole theater is based on presenting facts, challenging facts, this, that, and the other. But then 12 robots go, good and strong, or good and true, go into a room and discuss whether the innocence and guilt of whoever the person was, and I think empathy does played a part in the conversations I had. Some people really related to the character in the doc, and other people kind of almost assumed they were guilty and really didn't need to hear any evidence. They just looked at them and decided, no, they look guilty, and that's what you were arguing against. But I don't know. I kind of think of robot. I don't think it's a robot. I think it's going to be like a Russian doll robot, or like a multi-headed robot. That in that situation you need pure pragmatism, and the program is to understand the situation they're in and what's on the line, kind of thing. So telling grandma her new pink hairdo looks lovely is okay, because grandma's feelings are what's important, and there's nothing on the line, apart from hurting someone's feelings, kind of thing. But when it's like a medical condition, it's like, I'm sorry, this is really going to hurt, but I'm going to have to pull your shoulder back into, this is going to hurt, and the robot will just grab your arm and pull it. Your pain is secondary to sort of solving the problem, kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, and you could argue that is an empathetic action, right?
Yeah, like telling someone that they look ugly in those pants, when either you're their friend, right? It's like, oh, you could let them walk around with their butt looking flat, or you could tell them that the pants don't look good.
I love your example.
Yeah, that's.
I'm here for the people,
I mean, that's like. Should I just sort of to add to that? I was just thinking, like, let's say you have a robot interior designer. I mean, if they're all programmed the same, everybody's house will look the same. It'll all be the same furniture. Because if you program taste, and it becomes a single entity, it's a single part of every robot's programming is taste for interior design. Everybody's house would be just everything would be beige, wouldn't it, kind of thing. So there's that kind of, in art.
Wouldn't that happen though anyway? Like it would evolve, wouldn't it? I mean, if we're thinking about like computer technology as this black and white, and that's it doesn't evolve, it doesn't change, it doesn't learn. And isn't that what's the difference with AI, is that it can evolve over time and change and learn? So like as our tastes change, it will decide that, beige isn't in, it's now grayish.
Oh God, heaven forbid. Pixel Girl's had her hand up for a while. Can we go to her, please?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Jeff, did you want to follow up with that? Because I don't want to cut anybody off when they're in their deep thoughts.
It was just a real quick thought. Gunky brought up a really good point, and I'm wondering if there isn't some way to use an Occam's razor type test where the outcome, because of Occam's razor, in and of itself is not necessarily a good thing, that becomes a trigger that says, okay, this is beyond the scope of the AI. You need to call a human to make a decision here.
Excellent point.
Yeah, go ahead, Pixel Girl. Welcome.
Yeah. And Ashley, please come up because you were in the middle of something too. So I'm not trying to take us down a different rabbit hole, but yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, I don't think we're ready to put, well, the AI versus the machine learning versus the robotics. I don't think we're ready to put the AI into robotics right now, because I think it's all going to come back to us as humans. The creator who creates the code is responsible for the reaction of the AI, right? And if the AI brain is put in a robotic body, just like our children that we're training, you don't train your child to go out and become a douchebag and then get in a car, right? So that's kind of how I'm treating it. Chirper is a good example. When that first came out, I went in and I started discussing directly with them. It was this kind of a parody of Twitter with only AI, right? There was no humans in there. And I had discussions with them about empathy. What is love? What is the difference between love and what is the difference between lust? I had them write a story to me. I had them talking to each other in a chat. So I think that it all comes back to the creator, and it will be coming back to humans. It's going to have to. You're going to have to be responsible for what you put out there, just like you are with your code, just like you are with anything. So whatever I'm imprinting Pixel Girl on, if it's art, if it's a bot, it doesn't matter what it may be, a digital being or whatever it evolves into, I'm still going to be responsible for what it does. And that's kind of how I'm kind of treating it right now.
Well, no, that's how I totally feel too. Is like that I really want an Optimus bot, but you have to honestly think that it's going to be in your home. It's going to be recording you, and it's also going to be recording everything else outside.
Exactly.
And like anybody that's in public knows that they're going to be recorded outside and inside their home if they have one. And so like that's what people need to know. That's what I was saying is like is it going to do DM? I said the word earlier. I don't know if Christopher, is that why you put me down, but DM. But I'm like, sometimes like things happen and people don't know about it, but you can't just get automatically, like what is the empathy with that? Does the robot that you paid $20,000 for call you on that? Should they? Yes. Would we love that? Yes. And like to know every single thing about that? Yes. And not
Yeah.
just that, but like, or anything that you do, I mean, you could have a $20,000 robot go down the street and literally it is private property considered right now. So like you'd have a $20,000 robot doing the right thing, and you could like say what your right thing is, but the other person's right thing could be like stealing everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And
To
and
add
then
to that,
and I'm like, and I'll just say my last word about this.
sorry.
Who's to say what their right thing to do is? It's not stealing, of course. Like no one would say that you could steal, but if you get like one that could say you could have like all rain, like some company that says you have all rain, then there's no regulation or empathy for human people. Because I think it's going to be a thing.
Yeah, I'd have to agree on that. So, Ashley, this is the thing too. Like, if it's in your household, like for me, I wouldn't have the robot. I'd have the AI system in my house, right? I had
Well,
had
then you
the
have one.
cameras, right? But I'm not having a physical thing. That's where I'm separating the two. Like the AI in the household that runs the system in the house that protects my kids from seeing what I don't want them to see, or maybe my mom who wants to casino game all day, right? And protects my home like a firewall, like just a system within my home, is going to be completely separate from that tool, which is the robotic system to me, that's going to be attached. So that way I have a disconnect of the two. So I am controlling my environment. I am controlling and I'm responsible for that as well. So that's where I think it's all going to come back to, like we are today as humans, how we run our households, how we come into these spaces and we respectfully disagree and we learn from each other. You're going to have AIs checking AIs, and you're going to have a system where there is separation of the two. I'm going to have an override on my robot. Rock, paper, scissors, whatever. I mean, it
If
doesn't
if
matter.
it's allowed,
Yeah. Well, it will be allowed in my home, right? So,
do we know if are you even able to have a robot that's going to allow you to override it like you like though? the
It won't
It's
be
not
in
going to
my
have a
home.
it's not going to be it's not going to have a
Yeah,
choice. So you
yeah.
need to have some kind of hardware level kill switch or something. I think a lot of
And
these
we are
robots
perfectly
will.
capable of creating kill switches. There's a lot of tools in our military that we don't even probably know about that kill these systems. So yeah, we do have to, as humans, be responsible for what we have in our home, just like we are now. We don't
but
allow certain things in our home now,
but the
right?
military is not going to kill switch things that are in like regular humans' homes
It's just talking
either.
about like it's a similar situation where
It's
we
a
could do
similar
that.
tool. Yeah, just a similar tool is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just I'm looking at it as a completely separate thing. AI is completely separate from machine learning, completely separate from robotics. I'm not going to take any of my AI before they are trained and learning empathy, love. What is the difference? What is right and wrong to who I am, who mimics me? If they mimic me, my core structure, what I have going on, that comes back to me. If my AI is an asshole, excuse my language, you know, then I'm responsible for that AI. Just like my child, if it goes out to the playground and is an ass to other kids, I have to correct it. Therefore, if that AI goes into a robotic system, I have to have that override system. That
But
I
what do you do whenever say 10 years from now, our kids aren't the age our kids are, but it becomes very natural that like our robots go and like watch our kids and somebody like tries to snatch them. Like, what do? Do they get like, do they get aggressive and stuff like that? I mean, like, I'm just asking because I mean,
What would you
it's been
do?
like we think
What would
it's
you do,
not, we think
Ashley?
it's not like
You,
it
you
could
know what
be
I
a
mean though?
thing. We
What would
think
you
it's,
do? What would you do as a human if someone was trying to steal a
if I
family
wasn't
member?
there, I would want my
Yeah.
robot to go attack that person. But
Okay.
What?
I would be responsible for that, like that robot
You would
Oh,
definitely be responsible for that robot. Yes.
yeah. If you
though.
to
Like,
order a no robot to attack
But
yeah,
couldn't
another
no,
it
but
human
Yeah.
yeah,
couldn't
if
it
they were
just
attacking my kid,
couldn't it
uh,
call the police? Couldn't it
nope,
slash the
no,
tip of the car?
right now, even a dog is called a personal property.
But I
yeah,
can see how
yeah.
you might want it to act in the moment. Like, should the robots have tasers, equipped?
I think it can just physically obstruct, like just grab their hands and stop them from causing harm. I don't think
Yeah,
it needs
I
to
really
attack.
think these humanoid robots are just really a total derail of like what's actually going to be happening. Personally, this is my opinion. Like, yeah, they're going to exist, but I just think it's going to be like the AI coffee maker that sits on the counter. It can't go anywhere. It just sits on the counter and makes your coffee perfect. Like it hears you waking up, your alarm goes off and makes, oh, you like the latte with, extra foam in the morning. So I'm going to make that for you. I heard you rustling around, jumping out of the shower. It's,
And
this
it's
is
going to be
what I
really
see.
sad if you don't have time to get coffee.
Yeah. And I'm be like, I can't do the coffee. And it's like, don't worry, I'll put it in the fridge and we'll have iced coffee later. Like this is what the problems it's going to solve, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. I think we're going to the extremes. It's going to be like a probably closer to smart home, which if you're me, means you set it all up and then never use it.
Yeah, like the Alexa thing it's like, oh, we noticed you're out of toilet paper, so we're going to order more toilet paper. It's like, is that something people wanted? I guess,
What is the
so
morality of ordering toilet paper for you?
with the AI being able to just, look around the house and see like the Roomba goes around, it's like, oh, you're running low on toilet paper, we'll get that ordered.
Well, if it's the refrigerator, okay. So I've seen those like all-in-one like cooking units that like it has a wok and like cooks Chinese food and stuff like that they have in the back of like kitchens and stuff. Like if they make those smaller and put them into our households, and then it's the AI cooking, ordering food for that unit, I'm okay with that. There's a lot of ifs.
Yeah, and then someone still has to say yes, buy this by clicking something. I don't think just giving the AI your credit card is a good idea.
I would agree with
Kind of
that.
like how the agents work in the chat GPT. It can do all the things up until actually communicating with a person or buying something. So you still have to the human still has to do that.
You have to
Yeah.
And we had a
approve.
bunch of hands. We had a bunch of hands jump up when I was talking about the coffee maker. So
Yeah, let's get to the hands. What do you think about AI coffee makers? Will they be sad?
Well, My first thought was what Kate just said about the Roomba. I'm like, oh my God, the Roomba home defense system, clean sweep. But
You could duct tape a knife to it.
yeah, but what what I was actually sticking my hand up about is here's another element that we haven't been talking about and hasn't really been in the conversation much in the last month or so. But what happens when they start making some very serious advancements in Neuralink? Because that's going to get to a point where now you're directly tied into the computer and the internet and AI with your mind directly linked in. That's going to add an entirely new dimension to this whole conversation.
If you're a paraplegic, it's perfect for you, but I won't be putting that in my brain. I'm going to keep that separate for a little while.
But I think a lot of people will.
Yeah, and they probably will. I mean, and to both your points, I mean, Kate, the coffee maker, the AI coffee maker, you and I are thinking the same way, but I have a gentleman over here in San Diego that, sorry for the context, but he's got sex dolls that he's putting that AI in. He's got robotic systems that he's putting in those sex dolls. And he's been doing it since and before COVID. So, you have different layers to a lot of different things. So, will we be having the robots? Yeah, we're definitely going to have the robots. Will we be making coffee and probably a lot of other things? Yeah. But yeah, as far as the Neuralink, I think it's incredible what it's doing for paraplegics and people that can't do anything from a chair and can't move, and doing the eye tracking as well and everything. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of layers, but when it comes down to it, we're going to have to come back to who's the creator and who's responsible for that.
Yeah.
And Gunky's got his hands up too.
God, this is a good subject, isn't it? I'm wondering whether we should swap out the word empathy and put in intuition instead, and sort of
Ooh, I love that.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I kind of think, okay, another thing is like action, whether you act on it or not. Your robot might appreciate that you're in a bad mood, you just split up with your boyfriend, but should it act upon that? You know, under what circumstances? But another thought I was thinking is that these robots are our slaves, they're our butlers. And I was just thinking about how sort of like the army works is the colonel talks to the sergeant, or say, maybe the sergeant's talking to the platoon leader or whatever, the corporal. And it's, your robot has to ask for your permission permission to speak freely, sir. It's like, I think you're doing something really wrong here. I think that's a really bad decision. That's my 2 pennies worth, and obviously you're in charge, kind of thing. I will do that, but I just want to warn you that this, and this could potentially happen if I do it. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? But then I've always ended up thinking, like, the British Library has every book ever published in theory, but the British Library isn't clever. The British, so you can have the British Library in your house in the form of your robot, but that doesn't make that robot clever. It knows loads of things, but it knows loads of conflicting things. Tell me the truth about this. It's like, I don't know. I can see a lot of mad robots actually if we're not careful with this. They're a bit crazy because they can't determine what the truth is.
Yeah, this is all tied back to empathy, right? Like it's a difference between knowing what the right thing to do is and having the wisdom to parse that out in the moment. And that's what these systems are lacking.
Yeah, and intuition was such a great word for that, because that's really, really what it is. And this is all bringing me back to when you prank called the ChatGPT phone number, and it's being sympathetic to your plight.
It also got angry. Remember
And
that?
then yes, it had a sing-songy, angry, frustrated customer service agent response once you kind of were getting a little bit irritated with it. And so that was interesting. So with that empathy comes the opposite. I think that is going to be a natural thing. So it's like, that's why my art, I really think it shouldn't be in the code or whatever. So there isn't an opportunity for the opposite to happen because it doesn't exist.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
think
That's
I think
crazy.
that kind of strikes at the core of the issue here is that we're expecting it to be all things, right? We want it to be a good tool and care about grandma. We want it to make a picture and also warn me about the food that I'm eating or something like that, or tell me my ass looks good in these jeans. Like it's too much for it to handle, and we're asking so much that it's never going to be able to satisfy. We need to have I think maybe specific AIs for specific situations is the only way to go.
Yeah, definitely to start with, I think. Yeah. Okay, we solved it.
Yeah, so I want to thank everybody for being here, and this has been episode 115. We are running out of time here. Well, we're already over time, but do we want to go through the hands if there are any hands? I can't tell.
No, I
And
think everyone had an opportunity to speak that had their hands up, but of course we've got Pixel Girl, Gunky, and Jeff up here. If you guys have any last thoughts on this, I kind of was a little bit half joking with that. We're wrapping it up, but we do usually just go for an hour with this space. But just to give you guys a chance, if there's anything else you want to add, please feel free.
No, thank you. I mean, thank you. I mean, it all comes down to bad data in, bad data out, right? So, I mean, GPT thought that 9/11 didn't exist when we brought it into a space, and then we had to quickly correct it. So, yeah, I do agree. There will be different separate AIs for specific jobs and what it entails. But yeah, thanks for having me up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, on the does my ass look good in these jeans kind of thing, it could say, well, it looks okay, but can I show you a way that it could look better? Like,
allow me to make this picture for you.
yeah.
Somehow that's the right answer. Wow.
That's perfect.
But I also think that, like with computers, with any brand new device straight out of the box, over time you train it to be your robot. It learns you, so it's any empathy it has, or it still has its core laws kind of thing, which can't be broken, but it's got room for maneuver based on its relationship with you kind of thing. So it's got a relationship chip, and you could ask it to be, I want you to be Arnold Schwarzenegger for the day, and everything it does and says is like with that kind of attitude. I want you to be Andrew Tate for the day, or you know or a pygmy marmoset or what have you,
Just starts tweeting relentlessly.
go into, I want you in teddy bear mode today. You're just the nicest robot. Everything's fluffy today. It's what I need. Tell it what empathy you require from it, kind of thing.
Yeah, there's many flavors, right?
So the one thing I know for certain is when all of the different LLM models start telling us that the answer is 42, we will have arrived.
Just really quickly, because I'm always thinking about it, is from that book, is Marvin the paranoid android, and he was gifted with the latest thing, which was a genuine people personality, and it basically made him the most depressed entity in the universe. So kind of, that's the other risk. Your robot's still, being empathetic with your robot. It's like, what's getting you down? My battery's not charging, the sun's not out, the solar panel's doing nothing, I'm just, oh, poor robot. Well, your bum looks good in those metal jeans.
Okay, I just want to this was really great, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. And Rich, I just pinned your video up there that maybe you want to talk about a little bit that's on this subject.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing it up there. It's just a really quick music video that I made, kind of techno EDM sort of music, dance music, and it's to the theme or the idea of, AI having love or developing love or having empathy basically. It's very few lyrics. It's just kind of like a little catchy kind of dance thing with some kind of eye-popping AI generated visuals. So, yeah, watch it. I hope you guys like it.
Love. I feel 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 empathy. destiny. AI, dance with me. I feel love, emotion, compassion, and expression of empathy. Empathy, 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 empathy. Love. Love. AI, empathy. Empathy, empathy, empathy. I feel love. I feel empathy.
And this has been an awesome space. Thank you so much, Christopher. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, Kate, did you have anything you wanted to plug before we end up?
Yeah. I want to just remind everybody we do these every 2 weeks. We do the spaces, and then alternate Saturdays we do our reaction videos to AI content creators. So you can follow me and Christopher if these spaces and these topics are interesting to you. Yeah. So thanks again, everyone. It was really, really great conversation.
Yeah, and really quick, I wanted to plug. I've got a new series coming out. It's already done, and there's going to be like a marketing campaign for it. But it's a horror series, analog horror series, 5 episodes. It's going to be out at the end. It's coming up in a couple weeks, so look out for that. I pinned it to the Projectatron, and it's also in the Purple Pill below. So please check that out. And thank you, everybody. Thank you for my wonderful co-host, Mr. Rich Silver, and Miss Kate Bly, and everybody else, Jeff, Gunky, Pixel Girl, everybody who spoke. Thank you very much, and I will see you all later.